All right. What's up, guys? This is K-Rod here. I'm back with another good boxing stream for you guys today. I'm going to be covering why I believe Clenelo, aka Canelo, or Saul Canelo Alvarez, basically beat Billy Joe Saunders that took a dive against Canelo in the recent fight this past Saturday. So I'm going to basically make my point to say why I believe Billy Joe Saunders took a dive against Canelo. Um, so yeah, let's get right to it, man. Um, I think this is a very weird moment in boxing where Canelo he had more of a easier output with Billy Joe Saunders, but the fight itself was never to be close. Where Canelo was just basically pounding on Billy, but Billy he actually was outboxing Canelo in rounds like 1 through 4. I would say Billy was up 3 rounds, and then Canelo he picked it up and let the next 5 rounds leading to round 8. So that's where Canelo actually hurt Billy. But if Billy were to beat Canelo the rest of those rounds, he definitely would have won 7-5. But that fight alone was very weird because I don't know, it just didn't feel right to me. I felt like Billy Joe Saunders, he was very foolish on defense. He was kind of trying to fight like Erislandy Lara in a way, which, I mean, if that was Lara inside the ring, or anybody with a very slick southpaw style, aka Caleb Plant, the homie, I don't think he's a southpaw. I think Caleb, he's ortho. But even with that type of pressure or that type of awkwardness, that's what would make Canelo very scared of you. But for Billy Joe Saunders, Billy Joe, he's more awkward than Caleb Plant. His style is way more destructive, and he has more of a destructive, potential to do more damage to you. And I think how Canelo responded to that was mainly just due to the fact that, Canelo just did not want to deal with Joe's unrelying awkwardness in the fight. So Canelo tried using a lot of uppercuts to diminish most of his movement. And he should have worked more to the body. I think Canelo, if he did that, he would have stopped Billy, because Billy he does not like body punches. I've seen that before in previous fights. I mean, if you look at the Coceres fight, Coceres he was beating the shit out of Billy. That was like a fight that should have basically been over from the beginning if Billy wasn't prepared in that fight. But I think either way, like, Billy Joe, he had, like, the mindset to come in to think Canelo wasn't going to give him, like, the problems. As much as many would say he would have been in trouble, but I disagree. I think Billy, if he was a bit more, active off his movement and using his jab like he always does, Billy definitely would have won the fight easy. Because if you look at what Floyd Mayweather did the same exact thing. He used jabs, he got away, and then he started shoulder rolling away from the impact of punches. So it just made everything flow by easier, because Canelo, he's an inside fighter. Canelo does not like outside game. He knows where his disadvantage is. He can't do the things that he says he can do, and he's very how should I say? He's very simplistic of making his executions in the fights or in his fighting style way too simplistic. So it's almost robotic in a way, where Canelo, he makes it seem like he is just fighting pure Mexican style, which I just basically call it brawler style. But it's really not. Canelo, he's using more of the you hit me, I'm going to hit you back with something harder type of boxing. Because he is basically a tank bruiser type of fighter. But the problem is that Canelo, he does not have enough in the tank in the later rounds that makes him fall off. So this is where the peak really comes off in his career, where he's really not that good when when it comes to guys that have slick styles, because he's gonna get picked off in one of his fights, and it's gonna make him very, very tired, and then he's going to basically diminish as that the fight goes. See, now I could be wrong, but I don't think Billy Joe made it seem like he acted in this fight, but I do believe he definitely took a fall. The reason why is just simply because if you look at what happened in this fight, Billy Joe, in my view, was winning the fight. And the judges had Clenelo winning on some really fucked up scorecards. I forgot what, like 48-60 or some bullshit like that, but it was absolutely horrible. Like, the scorecards was just heavily favoring Clenelo, when clearly Clenelo did not have any means to make adjustments. Billy Joe was literally whooping him off the jab, and Clenelo, he just couldn't get to Billy because Billy was really pounding him away with those really good left or right jabs. It was mostly let the left, let the left counter jab with the good 1-2, and Clenelo just couldn't do anything. Clenelo just basically got annihilated with just good, unorthodox, like southpaw type of fighting, where Billy, he was just basically containing Clenelo with a straight right jab and that good left hook that made Clenelo very tired. It didn't even make him look like the same Clenelo that we see in fights where he's like, nah, that's not gonna hurt me. Like, I'm just gonna walk you down. And that's just not true, because if you just take a look at it, how Clenelo fought in the Arislandi-Lara fight, Lara was destroying Clenelo with that jab. But what really made Lara fall off was that he was using a lot of unnecessary movement that did not make him look good in the fight. So that's what made Clenelo destroy Lara. Not really destroy him, but make him a little bit frustrated, in the sense of, like, Lara, he had the fight going, and he was beating the fuck out of Clenelo. Like, Clenelo looked hurt. He looked like he was gonna get stopped if Lara actually used a lot more power, if he sat on his punches more. But luckily, the referee, knew that Clenelo, he was in the fight, but the judges were very favored for Clenelo. It's just absolutely disgusting, and it pisses me off that Clenelo, he gets all this leverage and protection to do all these evil things in the sport of boxing, and I don't know why, because it's like Clenelo, he is a good fighter in the sense of he knows what the hell he's doing, but in the sense of, like, just being pathetic and not fighting his contemporaries just shows that he's really not that good of a fighter. Like, Clenelo, if you're listening, dude, I really fucking hate you, man. I don't fucking like you. Every time when I see this nigga fight, this nigga don't do anything good. He does not give me the bread and butter. You give me the fucking, pepper. Instead, I asked for butter and the bread, but you give me the pepper and the onion. Like, Clenelo makes me angry in the sense of, when I want something done from you, you don't show out to me because you're not wanting to give me the fan of what I asked for. And I think Clenelo, he's just afraid of just giving the fans what we said from the beginning. Because, it just seems like Clenelo, he's just being a glorified pussy. It was good enough that Andrade, he fucking confronted Clenelo in the press conference. Good for you, man. But why didn't Andrade just walk inside the ring? If he walked inside the ring and made everybody look at that, that would definitely hype up that fight a lot more. And I think Andrade could be the blueprint to beat the shit out of Clenelo, or Caleb Plant, he could be the blueprint, or David Benavidez or Jamal Charlo. Either way, Clenelo is not that good until he proves to me that he's going to fight all these contemporaries and get the fuck out of boxing. He says he got like 6-7 more years in boxing. Okay, So if you got all this time, who the fuck are you going to fight within the last 6 to 7 years? I think he said 7 or 8, but I'm going to go with 7. Who do you got left? The answer is he does not have really a least amount of fights that he can get. He has a lot of good contemporaries that have been wanting to beat the shit out of him for quite the longest. But the issue is just simply that Canelo, he either does not want to fight the best, or he's just being very, very, weird in how he's going to structure these fights. Either he's going to either wait for either of one of those guys to be, vulnerable, in the sense of like he's going to fight Caleb Plant, in the sense of like he's going to have a good, test for Caleb Plant, in the sense of like knowing that he thinks that he could beat Caleb Plant, because Caleb Plant, yes, he is a mover, he's a southpaw, very defensively gifted, but when it comes to pressure, Caleb Plant does not like pressure. So that's really the biggest issue with Caleb. And I guess, what many Caleb Plant, fans don't look at is that if you look at the Jose Takagi fight, Caleb, he actually got a little bit hurt, from that fight. Took very unnecessary punishment. Did not really look like the actual fighter that many would think that he would actually win that fight. But it was just kind of weird that, Caleb, he just kind of got stunned by so many unnecessary blows that he could have easily dodged against, Jose. But, I mean, it was good enough that Caleb, he won that fight. And I give him a lot of credit because, it wasn't easy for him to make it to that world title stage. And good for you, man. But a lot of questions were asked about Caleb. Okay, what next? Who would Caleb fight next? He then went on to go fight Vincent Fagan Butts. I never really enjoyed that fight. That fight shouldn't have been the fight to see. I kind of felt like he should have just fought, I forgot who's that one fighter. He should have fought fucking. I wouldn't mind Ronald Ellis. That would be a great fight. But it's just like Caleb could have fought better competition. That's basically what I'm saying. There's so many names that have been brought out of the picture, and Caleb kind of looked like he was just trying to cherry pick the first 2 fights, which, I mean, according to him, he wanted to get the mandatories out the way, but I don't think the IBF wouldn't have been so strict on him for him to, not really fight those fights, and then he could just go on to make unifications, maybe fight David Benavidez at that time when he actually had a belt. But I don't think Caleb was really actually serious of doing that. I think Caleb was just more of just wanting to just get a Canelo fight, and it actually makes a lot of sense in the world to do that, and good enough that he does have a Canelo fight in place. But I just don't understand why Caleb Plant did not take advantage of the situation when Canelo actually did have a belt for the WBA. Or I don't know. Caleb could have had many options there. But I just kind of felt like that fight itself, with him and David Benavidez, it should have been happened, a while back. But now that I think about it, Caleb Plant doesn't want to give up the opportunity of him fighting Canelo. So he's going to just basically wait it out, which would be in September. So Caleb, he's probably been training this whole time ever since his last fight back in January or some shit like that, or no, February. But yeah, good for you. I just don't think that Caleb, I don't know, there's just a lot of questions that I'm very concerned about for Caleb. I don't think Caleb is going to lose to Canelo. I think Caleb is going to style on him because, like, the way, Caleb looked, against Caleb Truax, it was a good fight, but Caleb was basically admitting that his hand got broke in the fight against Caleb Truax. So either way, that fight alone was more like a little warm-up fight. And I understand Caleb, he's been out at the ring for quite the longest, but it's not like Caleb is really that bad of a fighter. I think Caleb, he has like all the tools to really win against Canelo, but don't get it twisted. Like, I mean, Canelo is not somebody to mess around and just find out type of fighter. He is a very dangerous opponent if you kind of leave yourself hanging to him. But I think 9 times out of 10, Canelo, he's going to have it his way by fighting guys that give him, like the easiest style for him to fight. And I kind of just feel like that's how it's really been for Canelo. He doesn't want punishment. Canelo is just like the type of guy that where he just runs away from, like the best competition, i.e. Demetrius Andrade, Jamal Charlo, David Benavidez, probably Edgar Berlanga, which I don't think Berlanga's too much of a threat now, but give it like a year or two, he could easily beat the shit out of Canelo. Not just because I'm Puerto Rican by descent, but I'm just saying that for the sake of like looking at what Berlanga brings in style for a Canelo Alvarez fight in the future, which is very, very possible for Berlanga to win and beat the crap out of Canelo. But I'm not saying that just a dick ride. I'm mainly saying that for the sake of looking at of how the fight really plays out. And just by the looks at it, it just kind of seems more to do with how the styles really match for Canelo. And it just seems like on his Europe assassination tour, he's just trying everything in his power to not fight any American style type of fighters. And I could be wrong, but I don't think Canelo is really that good of a fighter. If he was that good, then I would actually have a lot of respect for him. But he's really not that good, man. Canelo, he's been fighting a bunch of tomato can fighters. Let's just admit it. Canelo, he doesn't want to fight Demetrius Andrade. He does not want to fight Charlo. For the better yet of six going on to 7 years, what the fuck has Canelo been doing? Canelo's been doing absolutely nothing to solidify legacy. Legacy is not being valued here. It's more to just do with protecting his, undefeated winning streak, I would say, because he just wants to keep it easier for his career to flourish, as he pretends as if he's number one pound for pound, but you're not beating pound for pound fighters. It's the same situation with Terrence Bud Crawford. Every time when I look at, Terrence Crawford and his, weird little decisions, it just doesn't make any sense, because Crawford should be fighting Errol Spence by now. He should be fighting Sean Porter. He should be fighting all these guys that makes his profile better and he makes more money in the future. But guess what? Crawford don't want to do that. He wants to just foolishly go after a Manny Pacquiao fight where he's been trying to force that fight for 6 years that hasn't been helping him, and it just makes no fucking sense. I don't know what the hell is Crawford's issue, but he really needs to stop doing that. He needs to stop. I don't know what his problem is, but Crawford, like, he's just being an absolute weirdo. But same thing with Canelo. And I don't know if they're twins. I don't know if they're brothers. But this ducking shit in boxing really needs to go, man. Just too much evil shit in the sport of boxing that just makes the sport horrible and just absolutely garbage. But then again, I just think like what is being presented right now in boxing, it's just like what the fans really have to, understand and, just see, see it for themselves of, what the sport is, going through. But, I could be wrong. I don't want to think I am wrong, because I do have the information shown to me that, guys like Canelo are not fighting contemporaries. But either way, like, I just think it's just too easy to show, how the sport is being moved right now. And it's pissing me off. So either way, like, I just think Billy Ho Saunders, he took a dive. But then again, he claims to say that he has like a broken orbital eye bone fracture, in which I don't understand how that's true. I think Billy Ho, he's probably lying at that point, because for you to say that you have like a fracture after getting your ass beat by Canelo, where he did get rushed to the hospital, but I don't think that's how it works. You have to go through some form of a diagnostic, evaluation to make sure that you're actually hurt. But I just think like how Billy is answering, these questions by the media, or what's going on from the media about Billy's health, it doesn't make any sense. You can see from the fight itself that Billy, he was doing his thing. He was actually, performing well against Canelo. But the issue just still remains that Billy Ho, he still made, the effort to still keep on fighting. And his eye wasn't even shut. His eye was just basically bruised. That's normal for any fighter to go through that. But I guess let's just say if these UK fighters actually have a problem with their orbital eye socket being broken, I don't know if that's some birth deficiency order, being birthed from, Queen Elizabeth. But, I'm just going to keep it real. But if British fighters are like this bad at getting hit in the face, you guys need to learn how to use some fucking defense. Like, literally, British fighters are so trash when it comes to defense. I don't understand why so many of them go through so many weird-ass injuries, because it's like, you have the potential to use your defense, but they choose not to, because they get that fucking adrenaline rush, probably, by being mentally retarded with their decision-making, by making them vulnerable to basically, get hit more. Because if you look at the Daniel Dubois fight, he could have easily outboxed Joe Joyce, but he chose not to. He just chose to just sit inside the middle and just square it off, and then that's where he got his ass fucked up. So you cannot tell me that, these British fighters are so good, because Tyson Fury, he went through the same shit, where he got his ass fucked by, I think Steve Cunningham. Yeah, where Steve Cunningham, he was beating his ass, and then Tyson Fury, he had to fucking cheat. So, same situation here, which Canelo, he didn't have to cheat against Billy. He didn't really need to. But either way, the fight itself just kind of looked fixed, and it didn't make any sense. But I just kind of felt like the way things are going, it's just like, it just didn't make any sense of why Billy quit in the 8th round if this was going to be an issue. But I guess if his eye was fucking hurt, okay, then fine, you have to get that shit checked. But I don't think that should have really been the main excuse here. You had everything going, and you could have easily done something about it. And I just kind of think how Billy did anything to, sustain in that fight. He should have just used better defensive, mechanics against Canelo. I kind of really do feel like that really was the blueprint of getting Canelo out of there, because he was outboxing Canelo. He was giving him problems. So, this is all Billy's fault, in the sense of not getting away from the crazy uppercuts that Canelo was using onto him. And it was just really weird how he would do anything like that. So, I don't know. I just kind of felt like this fight just didn't make any sense from the beginning. It just had some weird bullshit to it. And I kind of feel like it's no different from the Avni Yildirim fight, which I don't even believe Yildirim really even wanted to be there. I actually believe that Yildirim basically just got paid off to take another dive for Canelo just to make his little Europe tour easier. But I could be wrong. I really could be wrong, but I don't want to think that way. I want to try to keep it objective and positive, but I'm going to have to be a little bit evil on that manner because Canelo did not really show anything to me, but just like the same version of him against Caleb Smith. He actually was just looking pretty sloppy and looking really easy to, get hard countered. And I think, if Canelo fights like that against a guy like, Jamal Charlo or even Andre, to say the least, he's going to get his ass stopped. Canelo knows he's going to get stopped because he's not that good. I keep saying this to almost every person that wants to dick ride for Canelo, but let me tell you something. When Canelo gets hit, just don't be surprised when he actually gets hurt by basically performing like that. Because Andre knows that Canelo, he does not like a guy who has defense and they're slick. And Lara basically showed that blueprint pretty well. So I think it just shows all the amazing tools that Canelo does not have. And it's pretty easy to exploit. But the issue is, do you have the mental capacity for it? And I think that's really the biggest issue for Canelo. Canelo does not have really the defensive tools to face against a slick, defensive fighter. Because what Andre brings to the table, and like many other people, it's more to just do with, the style itself rather than for what the nature of the fight goes of who's going to outweigh who more. And I just don't understand how Canelo really thinks he's that good when, this nigga's not really doing anything. He's making himself very susceptible to punches, and it kind of just makes it easier to understand what he goes through. And I just think eventually, like Canelo, he's going to, make himself exposed. So I really hope Canelo does lose to Caleb Plant. I'm pretty sure it will happen. But either way, I don't see Billy Joe Saunders really having a good rest of career. I think he deserves it because he never really wanted to fight the best. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I got to say. So I will see you guys later. Thank you guys, and goodbye.